Mighty Final Fight for the ZX Spectrum is a fantastic but unofficial port of the Nintendo Entertainment System Demake of the original arcade Final Fight game. So yeah, a little bit of a journey with that one. Featuring the same characters and story as the arcade game, Mighty Final Fight took the hard-hitting original and gave everything an NES manageable graphical style, but still retained all the elements which made Final Fight so popular. Considering that a port of the original Final Fight game has been on the ZX Spectrum forever, but was seen as slow and something of a letdown compared to the other versions, it's great to play this community-developed port of Mighty Final Fight that brings lots more colour and fast and furious gameplay to everyone's favourite Sinclair ZX Spectrum system. Hager, Guy and Cody are on a mission to rescue Jessica and stop the Mad Gear Gang. So let's dig into the unofficial port of Mighty Final Fight for the ZX Spectrum. Final Fight is one of the all-time classic arcade beat-em-up games. When it released in the arcades in 1989, it was a huge hit, and was what Capcom did in between Street Fighter 1 and Street Fighter 2. With it being a hit as a coin-op, it didn't take long before the game would find its way onto all manner of systems, including the Amiga, the Super Nintendo, Commodore 64, Atari ST, the Amstrad, and of course the ZX Spectrum. And probably a few others too. Literally, this game was everywhere. Now, much like the ZX Spectrum version of Street Fighter 2, which I have previously covered on this channel, the graphics of the official Final Fight port on the ZX Spectrum are just in two colours, black and another colour to represent light and shade. That version was also so slow with such limited animation and sound that it was a little bit of an unpleasant experience to play, frankly. Now, I'll be covering that port in a later video, but for now, let's get back to Mighty Final Fight, which absolutely blows the original port out of the window. As you'll see from the graphics, the stages are dripping in colours. The characters are just black outline versions of the NES sprites, but with all of the colour in the rest of the game's world, you won't find this very bland to look at. There's something that, for me at least, I find very nostalgic and comforting even about returning to play a game on the ZX Spectrum and see the characters that you are playing as effectively change colour like a little chameleon as they walk around the world and take on the colour of whatever objects are behind them. Now, they've done a really good job of making the NES game work and make sense on the ZX Spectrum. There are, of course, though, some compromises compared to the NES game. Unlike on the NES version, this doesn't have scrolling levels. Not that they scrolled tons on the NES version, because this is a beat-em-up. You go so far and then you have to beat people up before it will then let you move on. Instead, this just moves along one screen at a time, like you'd find on the original Legend of Zelda or on a Dizzy game on the ZX Spectrum. The controls on the ZX Spectrum are also a bit harder to play than they are on the NES, as unless someone can correct me in the comments, I believe this is a single fire button based beat 'em up, whereas on the NES it gives you two buttons so that you could jump and attack separately. It took me a little while of tinkering with the controls on the Spectrum to figure out how to play this best, and then I realised I should have gone back and just played the tutorial, as there's actually a surprising amount you can do and pull off move-wise in the game. Perhaps the most jarring control is that you have to press the fire button in tandem with the direction on the joystick to jump. Because of the nature of this being a beat 'em up, pressing up will just have you walk up the screen. So whilst so many ZX Spectrum games would get you to press up on the joystick to jump, like you would on a fighting game, On a beat 'em up, you can't do that, and you have to have a separate jump button. The only problem is that's also your punch button and is used to pull off all of the different attacks you can do. Pressing diagonal up and right or diagonal up and left in tandem with the fire button works well enough, but it never really felt natural even throughout the entire playthrough, although I did get used to it just about enough. It did mean that I would often make a mistake and either jump when I meant to punch or punch when I meant to jump. For me, the tips I'd give any new player playing this game is to jump kick opponents if you're surrounded and try to get it so that they're all in front of you. Then go up the top of the screen and use diagonal down movement towards an enemy, as this is the easiest way to grab hold of one of them. And once you've grabbed them, just headbutt them to death. It's easy to pull off a suplex or a throw, but truthfully, you'll want to headbutt most enemies into oblivion, as it is the quickest way to eat up their energy bars. If, of course, an enemy is about to jump you from behind as you're headbutting away, then it's best to do a suplex and bowl one enemy into another. Something that's a shame on the original NES version of this is that it doesn't say the character's name who you're fighting. Something that's quite cool though is on the ZX Spectrum, it will show a little portrait, even though it doesn't tell you the character's name. The chibi style of graphics on Mighty Final Fight add extra personality to the characters in the same way that Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo and Pocket Fighter's chibi versions of Street Fighter characters enhance those characters in ways as well. Made you feel a bit more for them. It's really cool just to see when you knock a guy out on this and his eyes really pop out of his head, and unfortunately the same happens to Hager, and he does not look a happy bunny when he is thrown to the mat. An advantage this has over the NES game is that this game doesn't feature constantly flickering sprites like you'd get on the NES. I do also prefer the look of the HUD, the heads-up display on this Spectrum game as well. It shows you the character portraits, like I said, and instead of having numbers to show what experience points and level you're at for how hard you can hit, it shows you a fist, and that is a lot better. It then has little lines radiating out of this fist to show how hard you can hit. There are some items you can pick up periodically on the game by breaking some barrels that will roll at you on the screen like they have come straight out of Pitfall. It does seem like the game only gives you one life on the ZX Spectrum, which I found a bit head-scratching. I don't know why this was the case, and the whole point of the NES version was that it was a more kid-friendly and easier take on the arcade game, and on that version you get plenty of lives and continues to challenge the whole game. As such, I did use save states to get me through the game on the ZX Spectrum, and I'd save periodically, like at the beginning of a new level and just before facing a boss, because imagine if you get up to level 4 or 5 and then the boss kills you and you have to start the entire game again. I didn't really fancy challenging this as one credit to beat them all. If you like beat 'em ups and are looking for one to play on your ZX Spectrum, this is possibly the best on the system. It does make me actually want to fire up Double Dragon again just to see how much better this is than that, or if it really is as scary as I fear. What other beat-em-up games on the ZX Spectrum do you think I should check out for future videos? I will definitely be covering the official port of Final Fight on the ZX Spectrum sooner rather than later, but truthfully I did intend to cover that for this video, but it had some freezing issues which held up play and turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as Mighty Final Fight is a much better game. I'll also look to cover the NES game in more detail too, as it follows the trend I've had on my channel of being something of an official demake, and with all of the videos I've done recently on the oddball and weird Street Fighter and Virtua Fighter games, I'm becoming something of an expert of lesser versions of great games. Maybe I should start playing some actual good ones soon. Maybe, but probably not. It's fun to play these weird versions. Now, what games would you like to see me cover in future videos? I try to respond to all of the comments I get on the channel, so let me know. I've got a few more ZX Spectrum videos in the works as well, so be sure to look out for those. And at that point, I will begin to wrap up this video. If you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate if you would smash that subscribe button here on the Geek Battle Gaming YouTube channel, and if you head over to www.xstreamed.tv, you'll find that I always put up a written article version of all of the videos that I make. So with that, until next time, stay safe, always stay extreme, and ciao for now. Boom, and we're off the air.